Well, this is fun. Mogwai, the Scottish post-rock band, is dropping their new album, The Bad Fire, on February 24th. And I know, The Bad Fire, that's a terrible sounding album title, especially for us in Southern California. I'm in Long Beach right now, and the air quality is terrible because of the Pacific Palisades fire, the Pasadena Altadena fires. It's just been devastating to so many people, so many homes. Like, I think that this might be the worst natural disaster to hit Southern California, at least in my lifetime. It's been pretty crazy. So yeah, it's just bad timing for an album title, The Bad Fire. But I mean, they named this album well before these fires took place, obviously. But this band, Mogwai, is releasing this new album, and it's their 11th album, and they are such an unusual band in their style. I would say that they are probably one of my favorite instrumental rock bands of the past couple decades. Like, most of their songs have no lyrics. They do have, like, usually they have a couple songs on each of their albums that have some lyrics. I think the first album in their catalog that had 0 lyrics is The Hawk is Howling, which is probably my favorite Mogwai album. Is from 2008. But this band started in the early 90s, and it was founded by Stuart Braithwaite and Dominic Atchison. They had met in like 1991, and they started a band with Martin Bullock. And a few years later, the drummer from Teenage Fan Club joined them for like an album. And they also had John Cummings join the band a few years after they started, and John Cummings exited the band like in 2015. So he was one of the guitarists. They have multiple guitarists in the band. And in 2015, one of those significant guitar pieces left the band. So like for their last 3 or 4 albums, they've been without John Cummings. But Stuart Braithwaite is kind of the leader and the face of the band. And if I was to describe their style, I would say the typical Mogwai song starts out with very little sound, very minimal. Like, you might even check your player to make sure that you even hit play on the song that is playing, because it might go a few seconds before you can really hear anything. But then you'll start to hear like a faint something. That faint something, that little seed of a sound, will slowly start to develop, slowly start to layer and build until a couple minutes or even a few minutes, because some of these tracks are very long, gradually building instrumentals. But these start to build into this cacophony, this wall of sound that before you know it, you're like a frog in boiling water, slow boiling water, to where several minutes into the song, you wonder how you got here. You went from minimal, hardly anything, to this wall of sound that's full of guitars, full of synths, synthesizer, keyboards, very melodic bass lines. And, before I would call this drone music, I would say that it's not drone, because when I think of drone, think like Tangerine Dream, some of their work or something, or even like doom metal. A lot of that music is less melodic than what you're getting with Mogwai. Like, a lot of drone just kind of has like this that could just like persist for several minutes. With Mogwai, you're getting very colorful and contrasting guitars, bass lines, drums, synthesizers. It's really melodically rich and beautiful. I mean, it's pretty majestic. Like, when I go on long runs and jogs, if I'm like a few miles into the run and then I get blasted with a Mogwai song that, again, starts with very little and then starts to build, by the time I'm nearly done with the run, like, it could be emotionally overwhelming. Like, if you're looking at like a shoreline or something and you hear like the climax of a Mogwai instrumental, it really is something to truly behold. It's pretty powerful stuff. But it's interesting because as majestic and as powerful, and they've got a documentary about the band from 2024, and it's called If the Stars Had a Sound. That is actually a very fitting title, like, given this band's sound, If the Stars Had a Sound. I remember my cousin said something similar about Beach House, and there's another band, Cocteau Twins, that I could say the same about. There are certain bands whose sound just sounds like stars exploding in the sky. In fact, I think there's like a dream pop, instrumental band that's called Explosions in the Sky that I really like. But yeah, Mogwai, they kind of fit that description, at least on some of their songs. They kind of range from a hard rock sound to more of an electronic sound to even like a dreamy, blissful, euphoric sound. And sometimes it can even create like an ambient vibe. Like, I wouldn't classify most of their stuff as ambient music, but it effectively, functionally can do the same thing, because again, it starts to kind of creep into your psyche. It's not something that like demands your full attention. It's not something that is so jarring that you can't read to it or you can't study or think to it. I like working to Mogwai music because I don't have to think. It's like kind of doing this build where my subconscious is just openly welcoming it. So yeah, I'm excited about this Mogwai album. This is their first full-length album since As the Love Continues from 2021. Although their band leader, Stuart Braithwaite, had a side project called Silver Moth in 2023. But yeah, this is the first Mogwai album in about 4 years. And like I said, The Hawk is Howling is probably my favorite album from them. I would say my second favorite album is probably Mr. Beast. That's the album just before The Hawk is Howling. So that's like their fifth and sixth album. A lot of the hardcore or early Mogwai fans, they swear by like the first major album, Mogwai Young Team, and they kind of lament when Mogwai started to go more electronic. But I've often thought that it's the blending of the guitar work and the electronics that make for these magic moments within these long instrumental songs. And you have extremes on both sides. You've got some of their most electronic work on Rave Tapes from 2014. I swear, a lot of Mogwai diehard fans, they probably can't stand Rave Tapes. That's probably where a lot of people think that they fell off. But Rave Tapes has one of their most interesting moments with the song Remurdered. And then the extreme on the other side, on just kind of the hard rock side, would be on Mogwai Young Team, that early 1997 album. I would say the song Mogwai Fear Satan. Like by the time you're a few minutes into that building wall of sound, I swear that one will just melt your face off. It's beautiful. And I know those sound like very contrasting statements. It's beautiful. It will melt your face off. But I really think that when we're talking about Mogwai, that's kind of what we're working with. And as seriously good as their music is, they don't take themselves too seriously. Just check out some of these song titles, like from the album Rock Action. That's their third album. They've got a song called You Don't Know Jesus and another one called Two Rights Make One Wrong. And then from Rave Tapes, one of their more recent albums. Well, I mean, the album was 10 years ago, but it's one of their, it's 4 albums ago. They've got one song called Simon Ferocious. So if you think of like Sid Vicious, Simon Ferocious, it's just kind of ridiculous. They've got another song called The Lord is Out of Control. Beautiful instrumental, by the way. Beautiful electronic instrumental. The Lord is Out of Control. And from The Hawk is Howling, again, my favorite Mogwai album, they've got a song called I'm Jim Morrison, I'm Dead. They've got another one called Daphne and the Brain. And from Happy Songs for Happy People, they've got a song title called Stop Coming to My House. They've got another one called I Know You Are, But What Am I? And they have one called Boring Machines Disturb Sleep. And on the album Every Country's Son, that's 3 albums ago, so pretty recently, 2017, they've got a song called Don't Believe the Fife. That's kind of a play on the Public Enemy song, Don't Believe the Hype. And it's a play on the line, the Tribe Called Quest line, Don't Believe the Fife, and then there's a second part of that line, but Fife is a reference to Fife Dog, the late member from A Tribe Called Quest. So yeah, very creative and kind of humorous song titles. And there are several more, but I mean, I'm not gonna take up all your time just reading off funny, song titles. But yeah, if you haven't listened to Mogwai, give them a listen. Again, like the way I would classify their music in a nutshell, and I forgot where I read this, but it's basically quiet, loud, louder. It's kind of the pattern of their songs. You go from just that seed of sound, hardly anything, to kind of layering on with different sounds, different instruments, and different, melodies and so forth, until you hit this crescendo, this beautiful cacophony, this wall of sound, if you will, where it's just full of synthesizers and guitars. Very interesting style. Another band that's kind of similar to that is Godspeed You, Black Emperor. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming Mogwai album, The Bad Fire. Let me know if you are up on the band. Let me know if you are up on the band, what's some of your favorite stuff from the band. I know I cover a lot of different genres. I'll cover anything from classic rock to 90s hip hop to classic soul and R&B to modern indie folk. This one is kind of outside of all of that. I mean, it is kind of considered indie in that they are, of the indie, era, but sonically, this isn't indie folk. This isn't like Yo La Tengo, even though, the shoegaze aspects of a band like Yo La Tengo does have some overlap because there are shoegaze elements to Mogwai just because of the reverb and the effects on a lot of their instruments, the effects on their synthesizers, the effects on their guitars. Sometimes it is a little bit of a washed out guitar sound. But yeah, one of my favorite instrumental bands, hands down. Let me know your thoughts on the band. And again, if you are into Mogwai, let me know what a couple of your favorite songs from them are. A few of mine would be, you know, from this latest album, not the upcoming one, but from the last album, As the Love Continues, 2021. Some of my favorites from that one are Here We Go Forever. I like the song White Noise from Hardcore Will Never Die, But You Will, also from that same album, Mexican Grand Prix. I like almost everything from The Hawk is Howling. Like that one barely misses, like with any song for me. With Mr. Beast, I like Auto Rock, which is kind of different because you got this kind of keyboardish drum sound to start it off on that one, and on Acid Food. So I like Auto Rock and Acid Food from Mr. Beast, as well as Glasgow Mega Snake. Although probably my two favorite songs from Mr. Beast are Folk Death 95 and one of the last tracks on the album, We're No Here. We W-E'-R-E, We're No Here. Again, odd song titles. A lot of them are very funny. But yeah, that's a little bit about my thoughts on this band Mogwai. Let me know yours in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.